President Donald Trump today vowed to impose a 200% tariff on John Deere's imports.
Under my leadership, we're going to take other countries' jobs. We're going to bring thousands and thousands of businesses and trillions of dollars in wealth back to the good old USA.
He vowed to impose a 200% tariff on John Deere's imports if the company continues with its plan to move some of its production to Mexico. The idea, though, is stirring, of course, some controversy, although some support it as well here. Others say, though, it will make things more expensive.
This is the story of how one of America's most iconic farming brands made a move that many never saw coming, turning its back on the very people who helped build its legacy. For nearly 200 years, John Deere wasn't just a manufacturer. It was a symbol of rural strength and pride. Farmers saw those green machines as a reflection of their own values, hard work, loyalty, and community. But now that bond has been shattered. John Deere's recent decision to shift jobs to Mexico has sent shockwaves through rural America, igniting outrage and deep divisions. What drove the company to take such a bold step? How did this one move trigger political turmoil and provoke backlash from the very farmers who helped make it great? And what does it signal for the future of American agriculture? Once a symbol of stability in rural America, John Deere has seen its foundation weaken in recent years. In 2023, the company cut over 4,500 jobs, with the most severe losses in Iowa and Illinois. These cuts weren't just statistics, they affected real families and communities. In places like Waterloo, Iowa, longtime employees who had dedicated decades to the company suddenly found themselves facing an uncertain future. One former worker described it as a gut punch. The sense of betrayal felt by these workers extended beyond the factories. Local businesses that relied on John Deere workers saw a sharp decline in customers. With disposable income disappearing, families faced housing instability and were forced to relocate, leaving behind fractured communities. Emotions ran high. Community leaders publicly voiced their anger, accusing John Deere of turning its back on the very people who had helped build its success. Local politicians demanded the company reconsider its decision and stop outsourcing jobs. Meanwhile, workers gathered outside closed plants, holding signs that read, "Deere doesn't care and save our jobs." For many, this was about more than just losing a paycheck. It was about losing an identity. Generations had worked in these factories, and for some families, it was the only job they had ever known. When John Deere closed its doors, it didn't just mark the end of employment. It signaled the end of a way of life. But the layoffs were just the beginning. Donald Trump wasn't about to let the issue go unnoticed. When he caught wind of John Deere's move to Mexico, his response was swift and fiery. At a rally, he condemned the decision as a betrayal of American workers, even suggesting a 200% tariff on Deere products from Mexico. John Deere is going to be paying a 200% tariff. They haven't started it yet. Maybe they haven't even made the final decision yet, he said as his supporters cheered. Conservative media lauded his stance against corporate greed, but economists warned that such tariffs could hurt American farmers. Meanwhile, Deere's stock fell by over 1.5%. Despite Trump's threats, farmers began taking matters into their own hands. For years, owning a John Deere was a source of pride and tradition, with farmers willing to pay a premium for quality, performance, and longevity. But now John Deere's modern equipment came with proprietary software that could only be accessed by authorized technicians, meaning farmers could no longer perform even basic repairs on their own. The frustration was palpable. High repair costs and a sense of betrayal began to erode the once trusted relationship between farmers and the brand. What was once a symbol of American agriculture was now a source of resentment. This frustration fueled the right to repair movement, with farmers nationwide demanding the legal right to access diagnostic codes and software to make repairs. Lawsuits have been filed, and several states have already passed laws challenging John Deere's policies. Yet for many, the damage to the company's reputation has already been done. Meanwhile, a quiet competitor has begun to make inroads. China's farm machinery industry, with brands like White Geography Group and Zoom Lion, has started to gain ground as John Deere's dominance weakens. These Chinese brands offer affordable tractors and harvesters that are growing in popularity, especially in developing countries where John Deere's high-end models are out of reach. While Chinese machines may lack some of the advanced features of their American counterparts, they are reliable, easy to maintain, and most importantly, cheap. This appeals to farmers who prioritize practicality over prestige and want the freedom to repair their own equipment without restrictive software locks. Some U.S. farmers have even begun importing Chinese machinery directly, bypassing traditional dealers. As crop prices continue to plummet, corn is down 37%, soybeans by 24%, and wheat by 35% since 2022. Farmers are feeling the financial strain. China's reduced demand for U.S. crops has left farmers with surplus yields and fewer buyers. High operational costs and inflation make it risky to invest in new machinery, and John Deere's focus on upgrades has faltered, as many farmers continue to rely on older machines. In response, John Deere is investing billions into AI-driven tractors and harvesters, which may be a boon for large farms. However, these machines are prohibitively expensive for smaller operations, further widening the gap between industrial and family farms and potentially alienating the very communities that built the brand. To make matters worse, Trump's immigration crackdown has exacerbated the shortage of farm labor, particularly in states like California and Florida, where immigrant workers make up over 70% of the agricultural workforce. The resulting labor shortage has left many farms struggling to harvest crops, compounding the challenges already facing America's farming industry. These pressures, combined with international competition, have placed John Deere in a difficult position. Back in 2018, when Trump escalated immigration enforcement, the results were devastating. Entire crops were left to rot in the fields because there simply weren't enough workers to pick them. Farmers scrambled to find replacements, but local labor was either unavailable or unwilling to take on the grueling work for the wages offered. This labor gap didn't just impact production, it disrupted the entire agricultural supply chain. When crops go unharvested, prices rise, which hurts not just the farmers but also the consumers who face higher food costs. Additionally, as operational efficiency declined, production costs soared. Farmers were paying more for less output, and this economic strain began to erode their profits. For equipment manufacturers like John Deere, this was disastrous. If farmers couldn't afford to harvest their crops, they certainly couldn't justify investing in new machinery. As Trump's immigration policies continued to stir controversy, he made a move that would further divide the nation. His 200% tariff on John Deere products imported from Mexico sparked immediate backlash. Intended to pressure John Deere into keeping jobs in the U.S., the tariff made importing products from Mexico financially unfeasible. Rather than protecting jobs, however, it led to investor panic, causing Deere's stock to drop by more than 1.5%. Analysts voiced concerns about potential supply chain disruptions, job losses, and a weakened business model. In retaliation, Mexico threatened to impose tariffs on U.S. machinery. Global markets grew wary of escalating trade tensions, while Deere's leadership defended the move to Mexico as necessary for maintaining profitability. But public opinion soured, particularly in rural America, where the company was a major employer. In these rural areas, the threat of layoffs and rising costs for farmers exacerbated economic conditions. Local economies saw revenue declines, putting additional strain on public services. Farmers, worried about higher machinery prices, were hesitant to invest, leading to further drops in Deere sales. The political divide deepened, with Trump supporters accusing John Deere of corporate greed, while critics slammed his tariff approach. As the debate intensified, rural America found itself stuck in a difficult situation, caught between political disputes and growing economic hardship. John Deere's decision to shift some of its production to Mexico has already sparked outrage across the U.S. Workers are protesting, politicians are debating, and farmers feel abandoned. However, the fallout from this move isn't confined to American soil. The global agricultural landscape is also feeling the ripples, and the consequences could be far-reaching. When an iconic American brand like John Deere moves manufacturing jobs to Mexico, it sends a clear message to other countries. Governments and trade organizations around the world are closely watching, interpreting this as a sign that American manufacturing is losing its competitive edge. As a result, some countries are preparing to impose tariffs on U.S. agricultural products. This isn't just speculation. China and the European Union have both hinted that if American companies continue outsourcing jobs, they might follow suit with retaliatory tariffs. These tariffs could have a severe impact on American farmers. If countries like China and the European Union raise tariffs on U.S. crops, the cost of exporting could become prohibitive. Farmers who rely on selling corn, soybeans, and wheat overseas could see their profits evaporate. John Deere's decision to shift production to Mexico poses risks not only to the company, but also to the broader agricultural sector, which is already struggling with low crop prices. Beyond tariffs, the relocation complicates logistics. Parts would need to be shipped back to the U.S., and if taxed, this could drive up production costs, leading to equipment shortages and price hikes. Farmers, already tightening their budgets, may turn to global competitors like Kubota and Zoomlion, who offer more affordable prices and repair-friendly equipment. As Deere's reputation wanes, these companies are gaining ground. This crisis reflects decades of policies favoring large agribusinesses over small farms. With rising costs and falling prices, many small farmers are trapped in cycles of debt. Loan defaults are on the rise, driving farm closures and rural depopulation as younger generations move away. The tradition of family farming is fading, replaced by corporate giants. High-tech solutions like autonomous tractors and precision farming hold promise, but remain out of reach for most small farms, further widening the gap between large and small operations. Climate-resilient crops may help, but again, only for those who can afford them. American farming stands at a crossroads. Job losses, brand abandonment, and foreign competition point to an urgent need for policy reform, targeted subsidies, labor support, and a focus on preserving small farms. Without these measures, rural America risks losing its soul to corporate agriculture.